From Inwood, New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where you meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and this is Live and Local. It's our podcast dedicated to showcasing the musicians of Upper Manhattan. We talk with them about what they do, and best of all, listen to them perform live in one of our favorite local venues. Today, we're at Holy Trinity Church in Inwood, and we're excited to speak with musician Kat Modiano. Kat is an award-winning, multiple-genre flute composer and educator. She began classical flute training at age 9 and received a Bachelor's of Music degree with excellence in Classical Flute Performing Arts from the Rubin Academy in Jerusalem. She resided in Copenhagen over a decade before moving to New York City in 2005 to study composition at NYU and received her Master's of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from Empire State College in 2018, specializing in music for social change. With performances and compositions spanning Europe, Israel, Japan, USA, and Canada, Modiano's work includes acoustic and electroacoustic music and contemporary, classical, contemporary improvisation, progressive jazz, tango, electronic acoustic live soundtracks to silent films, and music for choreography. We're thrilled to have her perform live for us today. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy Kat Modiano.
Yes, light process. In the midst of control, truth process. In the midst of darkness, light process.
Kat, that was awesome. It's good to see you. Thanks for being on the show. It's been a few years since we've hung
Aaron.
out.
Yes, it's so good to see you again, and thank you for inviting me over here.
You're very
This is a
welcome.
great podcast. I've been following it
Well,
for
I
a while
appreciate
now.
that. And now you're on it. So how about that? Art
Yes,
meets life,
a dream
life
come
meets art.
true.
Well, God bless you. Could you tell us, please, what you just performed for us?
The first track was called "Blue Cat Moves." It's the first track from my recent album release, and the album is titled "Nomad Imagination: Roots of Love." Cat is from Crazy Cat, so it's with K-A-T, and yeah.
I see a theme with the cat thing.
Yeah, you know, my artist name is Cat Modiano. Cat is really, like I said, from Crazy Cat, a cartoon strip, a brilliant cartoon strip by George Harriman from 1910 to 1940s. He lived in New York, then he moved to the West Side and to Los Angeles. He was involved there with the Native Americans, and the whole Crazy Cat thing is happening. Coconino town is happening on what you call the Monumental Valley, which used to be, if I'm not mistaken, the a holy land of the Navajo.
Wow.
Or maybe another nation, but I believe it's Navajo. So,
Gotcha. Were you always called to music from a young age, and were you come from a musical family or anything, or how did you stumble upon the flute? And I mean, it's kind of like you don't know everybody. As I was saying, not too many flute players walking around these days who are such of professional nature as yourself. So I'm just curious of your journey towards the flute.
Well, I started the recorder when I was 7.
Yeah.
Actually,
like
in
most
Newton.
School kids. Yes.
In Newton, I was 2nd grade, and my sister was 4th grade, and my father had something. He was working there. It's postdoc in Newton, Boston, Massachusetts, and so we were there for a year, and that's where I started my career. So I started with the recorder, then I continued in Israel at school, and when I was 9 towards 10, I really wanted the flute. I knew I wanted to continue with a woodwind instrument, and I checked the other woodwinds. I remember my mom took me around in the conservatory, and only the flute seemed to be the thing for me.
That's really great that your parents were actually proactive and supported you.
Yes. And then I had training with classical teachers since then.
You've had a lot of mentors across the way. Any few mentors you
Yeah,
want to...
there's a few teachers, and then I went into the academy, and so I really wanted to hear only classical music. So my parents are not musicians, so my father was a chemist engineer, so inventor, so he was a scientist. But when you invent in science, it's a bit like composing in music or something like that. It's an artist. And my mom, who's not an inventor, but she always loved, and she loves music very, very much, music and arts. So I grew up listening a lot to classical music and jazz too.
And when did you start composing your own work?
I started, maybe you can say, when I was at the academy, when I was 20-something. I started to improvise. When you grow up on a classical training, it's not always easy to start to improvise suddenly, because usually when you're a musician, a classical musician, you read from the notes, and it's all about interpretation. But I needed to take some drugs, and then I took some weed, just some weed.
Oh, just a few, just to loosen you up a little bit.
Yeah. So to loosen up a bit and play with other people, and then I started with the blues and the jazz. So the two directions, and the drugs are stopped, luckily, after some time. I'm clean now. But the two directions continued parallel. I don't really mix it very much, so I have like different genres that I work with.
Okay. Well, in addition to your own concerts and recordings, I wanted to highlight that you perform soundtracks to silent films, screenings with your live electroacoustic, one being Time in Live Sound. Could you tell our listeners about that experience?
Yes, this is actually the project where I do mix everything together. So what I do when I perform it in different theaters, and for example, United Palace Cultural Arts.
Hey, you did a performance at United Palace,
yes,
right?
Yes, of Metropolis, my soundtrack to Metropolis, 2.5 hours, with a break in the middle, actually. It's written intermission in the film. I hope I'm not moving this. So what I do is I actually create, and right now I'm working very hard on a soundtrack commission for Danish Film Institute. So I create the soundtrack, the film score, on what you call Cubase. Actually, it's an interface, it's an electric interface on the computer, but I use audio sounds, not MIDI. So I create the film score for that it would synchronize with everything. So I have to see the film many, many, many times, and it takes a long time. Then when I perform, I improvise with the flute through effects. So these two elements are together, the soundtrack from before the track, and that synchronizes with the film and my improvisation, live improvisation.
Which is great because you have like this foundation, right? This foundational work
Right.
of the composition. You know it's there, so it allows you to break free from it.
Yes, it's true.
As a performer, like the composer cat is, happy, and so that makes improviser cat happy.
It's true. It's true. The improviser and the composer is two different things, but it's also, of course, you have to improvise to compose. You have to start from somewhere.
Yeah. Well.
But it's true. There's, for example, I did at Tel Aviv recently at Tel Aviv Cinematheque before the war, unfortunately. They have a film festival there once a year, Tel Aviv Soundtrack Film Festival, where they also hire people like me to come and perform their soundtracks. And I did the live soundtrack to compose and live to Jeanne d'Arc, The Passion of Jeanne d'Arc,
Wow.
Joan of Arc, and that was amazing. That's the most special experience I've had with composing.
And you do
for
this
silent
mostly as a
film.
solo performer, right?
This project is solo. Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta say, it's like because I've known you mostly as a solo performer. Not that you don't perform with other people in groups, and so obviously you've performed with a great variety of people. Do you have a preference? Do you like playing solo and you're having like your own thing versus playing with a group of people?
It's very different energy. Solo is more. I depend only on myself. With people, you never know. Maybe suddenly they cannot come to the show, or there's always.
Will they show up? Well, hey, if they
Or
don't show up,
rehearsal.
you're comfortable playing solo, so I
But
guess
of
you're
course-
okay.
But of course, with people, you feed each other with the energy. It's really it can be an amazing experience. Actually, the tune that you heard that I played, the first one, "Blue Cat Moves," I recorded it in Denmark when I was there now for the past 4.5 years, until half a year ago. And that was with a group, with the drummer and the percussionist
Right.
and bass player and keyboard player. So everybody brings their own energy, especially because it's jazz. I compose the pieces, much is written, and there's a form many times, but there's a lot of improvisations too. So it's all together.
I'm just saying you have to have form in order to break form.
Yes.
No, I totally get it. Is there one particular piece you're proud of out of all of your work?
I don't know. The word proud, I cannot relate to pride so much when it comes to music. I should, though.
Pleased with, maybe?
Pleased, yeah, that would be more like it. I like the new album. The last two albums I released from when I was in Denmark in what you call quotes
Exile?
exile. Yes, thank you.
That should be the title of your next album, Exile in Denmark.
Well, so this Nomad Imagination, Roots of Love. So Nomad came from the fact that I was outside. I was forced to be outside New York
Right.
after being in New York for such a long time because of visa problems and so on. And the one before that, Humanities and Ocean Flute Soundscapes, which I played. The second piece we heard now was from there, actually, called Distances and Sounds. It's inspired by a poetry that I really like, but by a great poet and friend of mine, Ilya Bernstein. So if you ask what I'm proud of, I'm pleased with those two albums, and I also use those albums. The first one, not the jazz, but the contemporary, was I recorded in a place, a bit bigger church than this one, but also a very good sound. So I use those materials also for my soundtracks a lot.
Yeah.
Like samples here and there. I'm allowed, the record labels allow me to do that.
Well, I think it's great, and see, it's okay. You're allowed to be happy about your work. It's okay.
Yes.
It's good.
Yes.
And you should be proud and pleased with your work. Moving forward to like what's next for you. So, is there compositions that you're working on, or any commissions, or films, or live performances you would like to tell people about to look forward to in the future for you?
There is something coming up very soon. It will be live and open for everyone and free. There will be free access to everyone from iFilm Amsterdam. That's in Amsterdam. It's a film museum that releases. Since COVID, they started a new platform called iFilm Player. I because I film like the eye. So they commissioned me to do a compilation, to soundtrack to a compilation of 7 different silent films from the early 1910s or before even, and all of them are colorful, with colors from that time that they renovated. So I did that, and that's supposed to come out anytime now. So that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. You can check it out. So it's a compilation of silent films in their silent film section of that platform. Besides that, I'm working now at this moment. After this interview, I'll go back home and get back to my headphones and work on
In about an hour from now.
on the soundtrack for one Danish film. Actually, the Danish Film Institute, like I said, they commissioned me to do 4 hours of 5 different movies, all in all 4 hours.
You're big in Denmark.
Well, it was, yeah. I'm big in Denmark.
But you've been there for a while, so it makes sense.
There's
They
also
know you.
a concert. I'm doing charity concerts once in a while. I think it's a privilege to be able to do that, to help with the music, through the music, to generate some income for different social causes, social change, humanitarian causes. Maybe also one day it will be for animals, not just humans, but
Right.
for any good cause.
Right.
So there's something coming up now in May, towards end of May, 25th of May. It will be
Great.
on my website also.
And so what is your website so everybody knows where to go?
Modiano, so the name is modianomusic.net, Modiano, Modiano.
We'll put it in
.net.
we'll put it in the description of this episode so
Yes,
people will
so
be able
you
to
can
find it
sign
easy, okay?
you can sign on the newsletter, but there's also a calendar there. So I'm doing a concert that's going to benefit an organization called New Alternatives.
Okay.
They are based in a church downtown, very close to, in Midtown actually,
Right.
to Port Authority in that area. It's called Metro Baptist Church.
Great. Well, folks, you can check out her website and keep up with all her events and other forthcoming. Before we say goodbye, we have one more piece we'd like to hear from you, right? Would you mind sharing with us what are we about to hear?
Yes. The next piece is called Humanity is an Ocean, and that's the title track of my album that I talked about before. I'd like to mention that Humanity is an Ocean is a part of a citation. It's a citation from Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's speech, one of his speeches. Humanity is an ocean. So he was a pacifist, so am I. So I look up to him. He's one of my heroes. And I wish all the best. I want to say I wish all the best to anybody who is in a war zone now, not just between Israel and Palestine, which is a very, very upsetting situation, but it's happening in many places in the world that are quite far from us many times. So
It's a great thing to have right now. Peace is a good thing.
Yeah, peace is a good thing. So this piece is about humanity and about like a prayer for a better situation between human beings.
Great. Once again, Kat Modiano. that was wonderful. Thank you again, Kat, for being a guest here
Thank
on
you,
Inwood Artworks
Aaron.
On Air.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, and I really, really appreciate your podcast. It's one of the things that kept me while I was away.
Oh, that's so sweet of you. I appreciate it. And like I said, it's been a long time coming. You've been on the scene for a long time, so I'll say in my heart, you've always been here. You haven't been exiled. You've always been part of the community,
Thank
no matter
you.
where you physically resided, okay?
Thank you. Now I'm a permanent resident.
That's right. So now you are here for good. So once again, thanks to Kat for joining me on this live and local episode of Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes to make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment right now, please show us some love by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcasts. That really does help. Many thanks to Holy Trinty Church here in Inwood for hosting us, and to HideSites.com for uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation to Inwood Artworks at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate or via Venmo at Inwood Artworks. Please follow us on social media, keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. And Inwood Artworks programming is made possible by the New York State Council on the Arts with the support of the Office of the Governor and the New York State Legislature. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.